In this video, our group will help you understand what TCP sockets are, how they work, and an example so that you can get a clear picture on how and what are TCP sockets. Throughout this video, we'll cover TCP, sockets, socket programming, TCP sockets, and an example. So starting off with TCPs, TCP is the Internet Protocol which is used to communicate between one host to another. It is a connection-oriented protocol, which means a connection is established and maintained until the application programs at each end have finished exchanging messages. TCP works with the Internet Protocol, which defines how computers send packets of data to one another. The main reason people use TCP is they provide reliability. When a TCP client sends data to the server, it requires an acknowledgement in return. If an acknowledgement is not received, TCP automatically retransmits the data and waits for a longer period of time. TCP is a style of a bit stream protocol, so it means it doesn't have any boundaries at all. TCP is important because it establishes the rules and standards of procedure of how information is communicated over the Internet.
A socket is a software object that acts as an endpoint, establishing a bidirectional network communication link between a server-side and a client-side program. A socket is uniquely identified by an IP address and a port. These couples uniquely refers to an application, so data received by the network card of the computer are sent to a particular process based on the port number of the socket open for that application. In this way, we are able to run multiple internet-based applications on our computer. One machine has only one IP address, but different sockets with different ports are open to run different applications.
Programming is a way of connecting two nodes on the network to communicate with each other. One socket listens on a particular port at an IP while another socket reaches out to other to form a connection. Server forms the listener socket while client reaches out to the server. In practice, socket usually refers to a socket in an Internet Protocol network, in particular for the Transmission Control Protocol, which is a protocol for one-to-one connections. In this context, sockets are assumed to be associated with a specific socket address, namely the IP address and a port number for the local node, and there is a corresponding socket address at the foreign node, which itself has an associated socket used by the foreign process. Associating a socket with a socket address is called binding.
TCP sockets is an endpoint instance defined by an IP address and a port in the context of either a particular TCP connection or the listening state. A process can refer to a socket using a socket descriptor, a type of handle. A process first requests that the protocol stack create a socket, and then the stack returns a descriptor to the process so it can identify the socket. The process then passes the descriptor back to the protocol stack when it wishes to send or receive data using this socket. Unlike ports, sockets are specific to one node. They are local resources and cannot be referred to directly by other nodes. Further, sockets are not necessarily associated with a persistent connection for communication between two nodes, nor is there necessarily some single other endpoint. For example, a datagram socket can be used for connectionless communication, and a multicast socket can be used to send to multiple nodes. However, in practice for Internet communication, sockets are generally used to connect to a specific endpoint and often with a persistent.
In the picture, the TCP socket requests the GPS location of the car. MT external has to be installed into the car. MT external is the GPS gateway which receives the connection from the satellite and passes it on to the server. After the TCP socket requests the data of the car GPS, MT external will send the data through the internet and keep it on the server. TCP socket will ask the server for the data through the internet. Then the server will send the data to the TCP socket server.
To conclude, TCP is the Internet Protocol which is used to communicate between one host to another. A socket is a software object that acts as an endpoint, establishing a bidirectional network communication link between a server-side and a client-side program. TCP socket is an endpoint instance defined by an IP address and a port in the next context of either a particular TCP connection or the listening state.